Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Thanks for stopping by. In case you don't know me, my name is Iro and I'm a professional videographer, video editor and photographer. On today's video, we're going to do a Final Cut Pro tutorial and we're going to talk about 5 ways to improve your Final Cut Pro workflow. The 5 tips that I'm going to share with you today, guys, they're actual steps that I use every single time for the videos that I do for my clients or for my own videos as well. I find them to be absolutely necessary for my workflow every time that I'm editing, and they make my editing process much faster and more efficient. So let's get started. Tip number 1, always remember to rename your footage. As you can see from this little project that I have created over here, all the footage comes in this format. You can see some file names, random file names from the cameras that they don't actually help you really understand what each shot is. So you have to click on it and scroll through to understand what it is about. So I find really helpful to rename the footage in a way that is very clear to me what that specific video file actually is. For example, this specific clip, it's the view of a square. If you click on it, it just gives you the option to rename your file. And I'm going to name it Square Warsaw. For the next file, again, you can go through it and check what it shows and then rename to, I don't know, Stickers Warsaw. The name doesn't really matter in this case. It's just to show you that you have to put a name that it actually means something to you, and that you, a few days later that you go back again to your project, immediately remember what clip is this. So highly recommended. Always remember to rename your footage. So the second tip is again something that you can do in the browser. So as you can see, there are these columns over here: start, end, duration, content created, camera angle, notes, video rolls, audio rolls, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. These columns are for your own help. They show you information about each specific clip. And what I personally do is that I always use this camera angle column and the notes column to add my own comments for each specific clip. So for example, the clip that we renamed it to Square Warsaw, I want to say that it's an aerial shot and make a note and say, I don't know, use as intro shot. The good thing is that you can reorder these columns. So you can take the notes, for example, and move it towards the front and have them next to your title, so next to your name column, and maybe take the camera angle column as well and move it here. So we have all the information that we need and actually help us understand what specific shot is this right in front of our eyes, and this is really helpful. Of course, you can choose what columns you need to use and what order works better for you, but I highly recommend that you use these columns in order to be better organized when it comes to your media. These tips are also very useful when you are collaborating with another editor. So for example, if he or she opens the library on his or her computer, can have access to all these comments that you have made about your footage, which makes it much more time efficient for him or her to go through the footage and understand what is going on with the material and stuff like that. Tip number 3, color code your footage. This is something that I find really useful, and let me show how it works. So let's say that we have this little project right here, but I also want to add some music to it. And here I have my track. I'm gonna drag it down to my timeline, change the duration, and maybe add a fade out. And I want to mark this specific clip as music. In order to do that, I'm gonna right click, go to assign audio rolls and mark it as music. Immediately it turns green, so it changes color, and I understand that this green clip is a music clip actually. I can also do changes to video clips. Let's say that I want to color code this specific clip. So right click on it, go to assign video rolls, and you can go to edit rolls. And over here, you can add a new video roll. For this specific one, I want to color code it because it's an aerial shot and I want to know exactly where it is when I see my timeline. So I'm going to name it drone shots and I'm going to hit apply. As you can see, nothing changed. If you want to color code a video clip, you have to first detach the audio from it. So right click, detach audio, and we can click on it again, assign video roles, and we can go drone shots, and now we can see that our clip becomes orange. Sometimes I want to color code depending on the camera, so I have, I don't know, like a blue color for my Sony, I have an orange color for my GH5, and so on and so forth, so I can easily tell which shot is from what camera. Color coding my footage is something that I always do, and this actually gives me a clear idea of what is going on my timeline. Also really important when it comes to exporting, and this is because it allows you to export each specific role independently. So for example, if we want to export our clip, we can go to roles, and you can see all the separate roles that you have at the moment on your timeline. And for example, you can say that, you know what, I only want to export my drone footage or my music, and you can export them as separate files, which is really, really helpful. I do this every single time in my projects when it comes to audio, because I need to give the audio to the audio engineer in order to mix it. So I have to export only the dialogue as a separate channel and only the music as a separate channel without having any of the video, because this is material that he actually doesn't need at all. So this is the way to do it. Tip number 4. Don't forget to use markers. I love markers, and this is because they actually help me to remember things that I have to do later on. Because, for example, I do my main edit, my rough edit first, but at the same time I want to make a note and say, okay, at this point I want to add a title later, or I want to make a note for the editor that I collaborate with and say, hey, check this out, do you think we should keep it? So the way to do this is to hit M on your keyboard, and there you go, you get this little purple icon over here. You can click on it and you can make a note, and I can say to your fellow editor, I don't know, should we keep this clip? Question mark. So next time when he opens the project, he will see this marker and he will tell you his opinion. Another thing that you can do is you can do a to-do list. I also love that. I love to-do lists in general. So if you click on it, your marker becomes red, and you can make a note and write, for example, add title. So when you're doing your fine tuning and you're adding your effects and your titles and stuff like that, you remember that at this specific point you need to add a title. So it's red at the moment, and when you complete your task, you can tick this box right here, complete it, and your marker becomes green. Really, really cool. Another thing that you can do is to add chapters to your timeline. This is something that I use every single time when I shoot interviews, and this is because a client might tell you that I want this interview to be like 5 minutes, and you end up having a footage that is actually 45 minutes. So I find really, really helpful to add chapters in order to be able to follow the interview and actually add chapters. Like in the first chapter, I think the interviewee is talking about this subject. Second chapter, he's talking about this. So what do we keep? I find that it helps a lot. So the way to do this is to click on this icon right here. And as you can see, you can add a title, of course. Let's say, I don't know, let's call it castles. This chapter is about castles. And the way it works is that you can drag this pin and put it at where you think it's the end of your chapter. So I'll leave it here. So this is the beginning of your chapter and this is the end of your chapter. And of course, because it's a little bit annoying to have this orange line in your timeline, if you just click somewhere else on your timeline, this line is going to disappear. However, if you click on this bookmark icon over here, you're going to be able to see the beginning and the end of your chapter again. The last tip that I'm going to give you today is to always rate your footage. I've talked again about rating your footage in a previous video called The Beginner's Guide to Final Cut Pro or something like that. I'm gonna link it up here for you if you want to check it out. So this is something that I highly recommend. And I believe that a good editor is an editor that is very well organized and that knows very well the footage that is given to him or her. So when I have my footage, I always always watch it very carefully from beginning to end, and I mark the bits that I find that they are the most interesting or the ones that are my favorite. So the way to do that is on my browser to click I on my keyboard to add an in point and O to add an out point. So this way I have marked this area, and if I hit F on my keyboard, you can see this little green line that appears up here. That means that this is my favorite bit from this specific clip. And you can actually add multiple favorite bits in one clip. So let's say that I also like from here to here and click F. And as you can see, I also get another green line on top. If I click on the green line, I have my selection ready to drag it down to my timeline. If you change your mind and you don't really want to have this marked as favorite, you can just hit U on your keyboard to unrate your footage. This tip I find is very useful when you're working with another editor as well, or if you're doing the preparation for another editor, so that you can start working on the project and you have already marked the best bits of its simple clip. So when he goes to the browser, he immediately knows what's the best part of its specific clip. Another thing that I didn't mention is that if you have a clip that you feel it's not good at all and it's not usable at all, you can also reject it. In order to do that, you just hit backspace and you get this red line at the top of your clip, which means that it's rejected. If you don't want to have all the rejected clips on your browser, you can just go here and select hide rejected, and this way you just cannot see it anymore on your browser. Your clip is still there, so you can go back to all clips and your clip is still going to be there, but you just make a more tidy, I would say, browser in order to edit more efficiently. The same thing you can do for parts of a clip as well. So let's say that in this specific clip, we have this sticker right here, but at the very end, the camera just drifts away. So I want to get rid of this ending, so I'm gonna hit I on my keyboard for my in point and O at the very end for my out point. And for this specific bit, I can now hit backspace on my keyboard and I get this little red line again that shows that this specific bit it's not actually usable. So these were my 5 tips that can make your editing process much faster and much more efficient. I personally use these steps every single time that I'm editing, and I find that they make everything much smoother, easier, and definitely much faster. Not only for myself, but also for the people that I collaborate with. So that was it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well. I would also love to see your comments. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.